Right, folks, we've got our players. We're back from break, and this is a clash of Titans of North America right here. We did just see Dave Wiegand come out with a loss in a tough game against Nigeria's Nisikak team, but this, nevertheless, is going to be an absolutely titanic clash. I love watching these two players compete, Nits.
Oh, absolutely. Jesse Day is a delight. And we've already said nothing but great things about Dr. Bing, Dave Wiegand. I think this is going to be a fantastic game to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Jesse going first in this game. Let's see what that last tile is. Oh, that consonant saving him a little bit. It's going to give him some options. I had seen the EEOO combination work its way onto Jesse's rack there. Dave, on the other hand, drawing the first blank of the game on his rack. Jesse playing Wold really fast. Nits, we saw Jesse play a game, at least one game, earlier on stream, and we talked a little bit about his clock management. I believe Sam Rosen was my co-commentator at that time, but Jesse is unique for his usage of time in Scrabble. Very deliberate player, but he got that move down really fast.
Absolutely. And as someone who has studied at and graduated from the school of Jesse Day's University of Time Management, I mean, I have nothing but, like commiseration for that time usage going back and, having to work through those like last few ticking seconds. It is, I mean, it's a pleasure to watch him, but it's also agonizing to see him take his time. So I'm really happy that he got the word down quickly. It was obviously the best play, and now it's up to Dave to play his best move. It's great.
Yeah, we're going to see him make a move quickly here. There is at least one consideration, which is Caddy and its anagram of Cade both go down right here in this spot. So you could see that, or QA. I actually forgot which one I just drew. Hopefully this is a different one. He's going to go ahead and play Cade in this spot. I was wondering if maybe he wouldn't switch the order of these letters because he has a G, which would hook with Geo. If you were to have placed the I right there, maybe that makes it a little bit easier to play your bingos if you're Dave that start with G, but I have no real problem or quibble with this choice on his part, Nits.
That's a really good point. I mean, I guess he still risks Jesse having holds a G or a B from his 6-tile play. Cade seems perfectly fine, and it's harder to, I guess, overlap now where DO only takes the A at the top. So I think this is a good play. It's defensive-ish, and Jesse's got a Z that's got these whole bunch of E's trailing after. I wonder if he's going to put down just the ZE as he's eyeing right now, or if he's going to use 2 E's to make ZEE above Wold.
Yeah, really interesting. So you're suggesting, will he just play this or will he tack on this extra E? So there's a lot to think about here. So tacking on the extra E does a couple of things. Jesse has triplicated E's and he would be getting rid of 2 of them with this play. Instead, he's gone to a very different area of the board entirely. He's played just Zay right here. This might be the safest of all of the options. And by holding EE on his rack, Jesse is ensuring that he might be able to draw something hooking in this spot that plays alongside the move that he just made. So that is certainly a viable choice here. This had to have been on his radar as well, but playing the other E, even though this would have been so good to set up his S that he still has on his rack, it does make a really good scoring spot going across. By placing an E right here, you often get hit pretty hard with high scoring consonants in that spot, and you could avoid that by leaving off one of those E's. So there were a number of moves that were really, really close. Not 100% sure which I favor, but I kind of do like making a play that gives me a really good S hook on this board without one currently there, Nits.
I like what you initially said about just the ZE play giving back the capacity to play EE underneath. I do think that, I mean, it's a great security to know that you've got those two E's. And if you're going to duplicate a vowel, E's not the worst one to duplicate. I mean, an I would be horrific to do so with. But now that we've got Bink's turn, he's going to be happy that D is unobstructed. He's got 3 bingos through that D if he's going to find one, which he probably will.
Yeah, Dave, we mentioned this before in a previous Dave game as well, but Dave is incredible at finding all of his options with the blank. That's something that I have made a point of emphasis in my own game, and I've gotten it to a point where I'm pretty good at it myself, better than most, but I'm nowhere near as good at and consistent as Dave. He is amazing at identifying all of his bingos with a blank on his rack. And I have no doubt that he's going to see his options here. A bunch of them have been pointed out in chat. Hedge row right here through this D on the board. Very, very obscure, but nevertheless, you can see, I think he just had it lined up. But would he consider playing something like HOE here? This is an interesting move because it scores 32, leaving the blank, but it sets up an S hook, which he doesn't have. Yes, he has the blank, but it would be a lot stronger, in my opinion, if he also had an S to go with it. Then he could be really sure that he would draw something with the shoe hook. So I do think, as tempting as it might be to play Ho, I think the fact that Dave does not have an S on his rack, even though he has a blank, and the fact that Jesse just played ZE here, just 2 points for not that big of a score. I would be a little worried that Jesse's other 5 tiles are kind of strong after that play and could easily contain an S as well. So
Absolutely.
I don't know. It's a tough one, Nits. What do you think?
Well, how about instead of doing Ho, how about doing Goer in that same spot, not making that hook, but also, scoring pretty well and making sure that you bingo next time anyway.
Yeah, that's interesting. Looks like Mao he might be considering playing Hoer instead of Goer, which of course Goer, your suggestion is much safer in terms of not allowing a hook. Hoer has exactly the same problem as Ho. Shoer is a valid word. So it's the same issue. If Dave is considering this play of either Ho or Hoer, both of those take an S, which he does not have. The blank often likes to become an S in order to play bingos, but it is not a lock. There are certainly many racks that Dave could draw where he won't be able to use the hook that he's setting up. So this is a tough one. A lot to consider here between his bingos, which now he's come back around to a different bingo option of Geroud, a very crazy word. I just saw him set up on his rack right here. That is a wild word that we know he just saw. I really don't know I can't predict what direction he's going to go here.
Oh, wow. Okay, so he's going to go with Ho. Good on him. There's no way for him to know that Jesse's got an S. He can't really call that from the 2-tile play of ZE. But yeah, it's a pretty good play.
It's the play the engine likes here. So Dave has made the engine approved move in this situation, according to simulation. So I'm impressed that he's made this play. And now you can see he has regrets with the blank becoming an S. The blank does like to become an S. It's just a really good bingo tile. So when you have a blank, the odds are decent that, yeah, you probably may draw into something where you can make that blank an S. So now Dave is sitting on regrets and shoe. So the plan has really come together. I don't know what Jesse is going to do here. Is he going to feel obligated to block the shoe hook? And the answer is no. He's going to go ahead and hope that with his S remaining on his rack, that he's going to hit the spot first. That is not how it's going to play out, Nits.
That is fantastic. That's the kind of, I mean, risk taking that's not easy to do, knowing that you have the S, you're gonna, I mean, your opponent just made that lane. They just set that up. That takes guts to play left there.
Yeah. Comment of Jesse might regret that play. And oh my gosh, that draw, the three eyes, Jesse leaving ENS on his rack and drawing three eyes and an X. Not what he wants to see here from the tile bag. He was definitely hoping to be able to counter with a bingo of his own here. One thing about left that I want to point out that might not be immediately obvious is that it takes an E hook as well. And Jesse had an E on his rack. So that is definitely something that maybe he was thinking, if I get a bingo, I'll be able to play that. And if I don't, I'll just play something nice to the triple. But the three eyes made that pretty much impossible.
That's great recognition. And Chad has already pointed out what could be Jesse's best play here, which is using 2 of 3 of those eyes and his X, making Nixie and Dawn. So LI is the word EX, DI, and putting that E at the end. He can clean out his rack, keep an I and an S, which is as good as he can ask for.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Not only that, it has a great other attribute of, I think you might have said, setting up that S right there. He has the S on the rack, but no great hook for it right now. A wheel is an adjective, I think, or an adverb or something weird, archaic. So either way, setting up a nice S hook is a very good attribute of this play, in addition to getting rid of the two of the three eyes and scoring decently well. But over to Dave Nits, he's drawn that second blank.
Wow, what a draw! What a draw! I mean, I wonder what he's about to do here, because once he scans the board and he spends some time looking through it, he's going to notice that he doesn't have any playable bingos right now. But perhaps he could just fish off that K just for a few points, making Kex now that he's got the spot.
That's interesting. So yeah, that does, just plopping the K down certainly gives him excellent letters. He's very, very likely to draw into bingos all around the board if he just gets that K out on this turn. So I do appreciate the merit of that play for sure. That might be the direction that he goes here. Yeah, I don't know. This is, as I look at that, I really do like that option, just because the rest of your letters combine so very nicely with so many of the draws that you can get from the bag. Just trying to come up with, what might another option be for Dave here if he's worried a little bit about this left play from Jesse and not wanting to give back easy plays, not only with an S, but also with a Y. Again, the aforementioned E. So there are a whole bunch of hooks like that. If he wants to cut those off, he could play something like EUK right here for a decent score. ORT blank, still a pretty good leave. And you might deny some pretty good plays from Jesse much of the time. Other than that, I think Kex is a very, very competitive option. So, yeah, we'll just have to see.
Absolutely. I mean, my apologies.
No,
But I
all
think
you.
if Bing could, perhaps if he doesn't want to play either left or Kex, he could make a play like TOUK, making ET from the E in Nixie. And that would also, keep a very bingo prone leave with the ER blank. Unfortunately for him, it's going to give Jesse back Jurds. I mean, Jesse's going to have Jurds either way. He's going to have that with Nixie if Kex comes down or if Uke comes down. So I think even though Jesse's drawn what looks like kind of like an unhappy rack, he's going to be just fine next turn.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. As you say, Jurds is definitely, I thought Jesse had lined up Irids on his rack, but I'm sure he is thinking about Jurds and Nixies being his very, very likely next play, unless Dave were to block it. excuse me, just because, Jesse has the two S's, so he can afford to use one and still keep one in reserve. The game score is really not that far out of reach either. So Jesse doesn't have to go crazy keeping the absolute, best bingo leave that he can. He can go ahead and burn through some tiles if it gives him a good score. So, yeah, this is a tricky one for Dave. Let's note also that Dave's got this blank, and there we go. He plays Kex. Nice idea. This is going to result in a bingo for him a huge amount of the time, but also note that it definitely gives Jesse a lot of information. There is no way that Dave is playing something like that without 6 very good tiles that he's very happy with. I don't think it matters to Jesse. He's going to play Jerds here almost no matter what. It's just too far better than his other candidate plays here. But under other circumstances, Dave's play of Kex might adjust Jesse's decision-makingness.
Absolutely. And I think it's incredible that right now, at this point in the game, Jesse's actually only hit 19 minutes and 55 seconds or so. I mean, Dave has taken up a lot more time than he has. So Jesse can take this time. He can really think about what he wants to do. I do feel like Jerds is a standout play. It's just so many points to give up if he plays something like Eards instead. I have no idea why he would do that. Of course, he has to continue scanning the board, seeing what might be an alternative best play, but I think Jerds just seems to stand out so strongly. It's absolutely worth it.
Is it possible that he's missing Jerds here? That would be a stunner. It is definitely a word that comes to mind. Let's keep in mind that, Jesse's got a lot of stuff going on in his life these days. I know that he's a relatively new dad. He's got, he balances his work on Woogles.io, the amazing open source site to play Scrabble, as well as, a pretty I don't remember exactly what his actual professional job is, but I know it's quite demanding. So he might not be in as strong of a form as, other points in his career. And this looks like a pretty big miss, I would say, if he's not going to play Jerds in this same spot where Rids is going down. I wonder if he's going to feel like there just must be something better and pull this back. You can see his body language, Nits. He looks like he's agonizing.
Absolutely. I mean, I really wonder if this was a strategic consideration, if he just didn't see Jerds. I'd be surprised if he didn't see it, really.
That is a surprising one. He will be kicking himself over that one just because the J, again, you saw it last game. Dave Wiegand kept it on his rack when maybe he could have dumped it with that Taj play in the lower right corner in the previous game. And it did set him back. Yes, the J is worth 8 points, which you love to see. At the same time, it is very difficult to deploy in many situations, and it is next to impossible to use it in a 7 or 8 letter bingo. It really does cut off that entire avenue of your pathways to scoring well next turn if you keep that J on your rack. So Jerds definitely look like the play here, and Nits, Dave is going to pounce with a follow-up bingo here.
Absolutely. Something as simple as Outrage making grids is a great play here. He's going to score 78 points, give or take, with so many of these bingos that he's got available to him. This is a shame. Like, this could be a turning point in this game with Jesse choosing to play Rids and perhaps missing Jerds.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is something it's gonna sting when he sees that after and realizes that, what if you could just switch this J out for an L or something? You would have Swiftly on that rack, right? Like, the J is just not going to help you that much on a subsequent turn. Either way, it looks like Dave is considering options hooking grids that don't hook. So Outrage, definitely a viable option here, but that would take an S and a D hook going down. Dave was considering Tougher in the same spot, which would not hook with anything, a little bit safer. It looked like also Outgrew was on his radar as a play that would not hook in any reasonable way. That being said, outgrew going right here might every so often you might regret if there's some big scoring play right here, placing the vowel underneath. But maybe it's fine to play something like outrage. I'm not really sure. I would probably play tougher here if I saw all the options, but it looks like Dave's going to play outgrew. What do we make of this, Nits?
Uh, it's interesting because, like you mentioned, it puts that O in that very significant spot. If a 5-letter word that scores well enough comes down, it's going to hit that double letter score and that double words. It would give Jesse back quite a few points. I wonder why he has chosen outgrew. I wonder if he was only focusing on the triple word lane, if he was only focusing on maybe it's harder to play a bingo through that W. I'm not sure.
So yeah, chat already pointing out, and Jesse seems to be spotting it as well, that Wifty will go down on top of this O. That would be the drawback that we're suggesting. By placing a vowel underneath this square, you allow a high scoring consonant to end a 5-letter word. Wifty, exactly the sort of word that can hit you pretty hard after this play. 45 points, leaving JS. But man, again, that J really does limit the upside of Jesse's next draw. He's going to have to draw something fantastic. I guess the nice thing is that he does have an S, and if he draws something, maybe somehow with an S and a J down from left, making lefts, maybe that's a pathway to getting further back in the game. Note too, Nits, what we were talking about with the clocks is not manifesting in this game.
Wow, Jesse is he's way ahead in terms of the clock time. This is quite significant. I think this is going to help Jesse later on as the game develops and it gets harder and harder to play a bingo on this board. And speaking of playing a bingo on this board, I wonder if Swift from left may have been a candidate play there for 53 points, slightly more points, keeping a JY, which is not a good leave, not that great a leave, but would give him a floating I. I don't know if there's much merit to that, if Wifty is better in terms of the leave with JS as opposed to JY. What do you think, Will?
Really close. Definitely worth considering playing Swift, if only because you also get some board openness, as you described. The I, not only just the I, but the T, and to a lesser extent, the F when you're playing Swift down from that spot. But I do think that it's a little more realistic to play Wifty for only a small point sacrifice, play your J on the follow-up turn. Maybe you get lucky and draw something great with the J now, but I think the 2-turn sequence from here, play your J if you're Jesse and try to draw a bingo ASAP, as we see Dave play D Gum for 30 points into that open triple, balancing his rack. Definitely a play that looks good to me.
Absolutely. And I know we didn't spend much time talking about his move, but Zigum is a great play because it's also kind of obstructing the E and the W is not as important, but it definitely obstructs that E from outgrew. So it makes it harder for Jesse to play through that.
Yeah, totally agree. So now this is where step 2 of the plan comes into play. Jesse needs to find a way to get that J off of his rack now. He has a few options that do so, and he's going to have plenty of time to evaluate those plays. He's got one of our favorite words here, this acronym Jaffa, just another effing Aucklander, apparently. That word is so useful in CSW lexicon Scrabble. That would score 30, leaving a decent leave. If he wants, he could also just play the 2-letter word ya right here for fewer points, but setting up a more realistic sevens line for him to use. And then maybe even something like Jarta through this T, if he wants it, is also available for even more points, 34 points for him there. So a bunch of options. I do expect him to select one of those 3 options here, unless there's something that I'm really not considering, Nits.
The chat has suggested something incredible. I'm not sure if Jesse would go for it, but it's the word Hanjar through the H in shoe. Hanjar, very aggressive, keeping OS. And I don't know if Jesse's in dire enough straits to open up that triple line. What do you think?
That is very aggressive. I don't know how I feel about that. It feels like you just get hammered off of this. You just are begging Dave to play something through the R after this. There really is nowhere else. I think my problem with it is that there really isn't anywhere else to get anywhere close to that number of points outside of this left hooking spot, which maybe Dave won't even have the right tiles to use. There's only 3 E's unseen to Jesse and 2 S's. Dave could easily be without those. He is going to go ahead and play Ya for 23. The benefit of this, again, making a much more realistic sevens line going across. I think this is a very reasonable play. It's certainly much safer than Hanjar, which I think is a little too aggressive for my taste.
Absolutely. It does give Wiegand still his space to play Vomit, except it's for a lot more points now. This would have played for fewer points had the JA not been in that spot. I kind of would have liked Jaffa there, but absolutely, Ya has that incredible advantage of setting up a sevens lane, which was not as easy to access before this, unless, of course, if you play under left, and that's not super easy to do. So I wonder if Dave's going to come back with that play of Vomit. He does seem to have it on the side of his rack there. He's looking at it. I bet he's just considering the advantages.
Yeah, this is a great play. It scores probably the most points that he can get here. It gets that ugly V off of his tile rack. It balances things. It keeps the H for next turn. It does so many good things. The scary thing about it is you are opening up this triple lane in the process. So I think there are many players who would be disturbed at the prospect, I should say, of playing Vomit here, especially at this score. If you're Dave, you're up by over 100 points. One of the few ways that you can cede control of this game is not even a triple, but even just a heavy 8-letter bingo on the triple lane going across or through the V. But I think Dave is realizing that there actually are other ways that you can lose this game as well. You can be too passive and allow Jesse to bingo somewhere else on the board. And the V objectively is a very difficult tile to use for longer word bingos. So I think this is a sensible choice by Dave. I know that some players might be tearing their hair out right now. How could he open a triple in such a commanding position and give Jesse a road back? But remember, you're playing Jesse Day. Yes, he missed Jerds earlier in this game, but this is a player who's been in the finals of the World Championship twice for a reason. You can't just lay off the gas and assume he's going to roll over and die. So I get it from Dave's perspective.
Absolutely. And Jesse does have a strong play through that V. He's got the word sovereign, Sovran. That's not necessarily how we're used to spelling it. But I wonder what the merits are of playing that as opposed to something like what the chat suggested, Sonar, making lefts, because he does need those floating tiles to bingo through. Now, Sonar is for fewer points, and it does leave the V open for him to hit another time. But those 4 points, are they going to come in handy? Does he play Sovereign here? Should he play Sonar? What do you think?
Sonar seems very natural from Jesse's POV. The thing that I like especially about it, yes, it's good to open more space on the board at such a deficit. If you're Jesse, I think leaving the V open makes a ton of sense. You kind of need it to stay open. So playing Sonar opens even more possibilities for yourself on a subsequent turn. But what I love even more about it is keeping RS. If you can somehow find a way to end an 8-letter word, if you can draw something like an E, right? And find a way to end a word in ERS, which is a very, very common suffix, this is the play that's going to immediately turn your fortunes back in your favor here. So if you're going to make a play like Sonar, you'd be hard pressed to come up with a better pair of tiles that you want to keep than RS here.
Absolutely. I guess there is still a case to be made for Sovereign, but Sonar is it's a strong, good play. It does open up and give him some space on this board if he's gonna want to bingo and get back in. And onto Weekend.
So, yeah, Dave's in a tough spot now because he doesn't really have a natural play through this V. Obviously, from Dave's perspective, Vomit made a lot of sense to play, but I think he was always imagining if Jesse doesn't play through that V, I'm going to play there next turn. He doesn't have a great play that does that right now, though. His best play from a points standpoint is the very obscure unhable off of this U, which does very little to address any of the crazier openings on this board. It scores 40 points, which is great. But if Jesse has a big enough play through the V, it's not going to matter that Dave has scored his absolute best score on this turn. But he's just going to go with it. And I mean, it makes a
Wow.
lot of sense. It's 40 points. You're basically limiting your losing conditions after a play like that to Jesse having a triple through the V, which I will continue drawing right here. I guess I like this, Nits, though it does give me a little bit of a twinge in my heart here.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, it's a wow. I mean, Dave Wiegand's word knowledge is just incomparable. He is incredible at this, and he is great at strategy. There is a case to be made for something like BAH to the side of Sonar, but I think that because it only scores 21 points, it's not as great a move as getting 40 points and now 45 since the
Yeah,
word has been challenged. So I
extra
think
flat
incredible
points.
play.
Yeah, it's a beautiful play. There's no question that from a word finding and play finding standpoint, that's a fantastic play by Dave. He is gonna just be at the edge of his seat for one more turn. I think maybe the fact that I don't know. I guess Jesse would challenge this no matter what. If he has a big play through that top of the board V, right here. If he has any doubt of unable, he'll challenge that regardless of whether he has something big through that V. But we know that Jesse's tiles have not cooperated. He hasn't drawn the vowels that he needs. And now, Dave, if Jesse leaves this open, Dave will play something like Van Load through this V, and that is
Oh
going to
my God.
close things down once and for all.
That's incredible. Yeah, this is a tough spot for Jesse. I wonder what he does here. He's maybe just fly through the L and unable. It's just so uninspiring. It's not a lot of points. It's only 18, but he hasn't got the tiles that's gonna make this an easy move, being behind as he is.
Yeah, Vly Nitz's suggestion right here. That's a word that's pretty easy to miss. An obscure, archaic three-letter word. I believe that means a stream or something like that, probably in Scottish. But I'm wondering, is he considering playing something like cribs up here? Why does he have that set up this way? This is not a valid word. So this would just result in Dave challenging and playing Van Load and breathing a big sigh of relief. But I don't know what those tiles on his rack, the way he has them set up. I can't really figure out what he's going for yet.
Me neither. I wonder if we're supposed to be looking at the SY, but I don't really know what he'd be doing with the SY either. Not sure.
Jeremy in the chat has it figured out. So he's trying to potentially go for the valid word if he can play SY somewhere and draw EN from the bag, which is not likely but not impossible. Then he will be setting up a massive place for him to play Crivens if he draws EN from the bag. So this is probably that makes a lot more sense now. What could he be thinking? Is there a place for me to play SY, I should say, and draw EN from the bag? But now he's probably thinking that's not that likely to work out for me. Maybe there's a better way forward. So, yeah,
No,
that
that's
that
an
must be it.
incredible. That is incredible. That is beautifully, yeah, beautifully found and beautifully considered. I wonder if he's gone from thinking about slide to Vly. He does seem to have moved the V over to the side. It'd be interesting to see what he goes with here. This is a tough turn. I really don't know what he should do. Maybe just
Yeah.
size through the E and out Guru. This is tough.
When the game score gets this lopsided, your decisions really do become very difficult, and they do sort of require much more creativity and much more specific thinking. You really need to come up with a more specific pathway to victory, because if you play normally, you probably aren't going to win this game. You have to do something very unique and specific to this game situation to give yourself a chance. And that is something that I think Jesse Day really excels at. I've seen it 1,000. If I've seen it once, I've seen it 100 times in Jesse's annotated games, where he just is masterful at coming up with those types of crazy creative sequences. It's one of the things that makes him such a dangerous player to play against. But this one is going to be a tough one for him to navigate. And again, that V of Vomit, even though leaving it open makes a lot of sense for him, Dave is going to hammer down Van Load so fast on his next turn. I'm predicting.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right about Jesse being one of the more creative players out there. He's incredible at developing the board like an instrument. He thinks outside of the box. He's a beautiful player to watch in motion. I I really think he's going to take a good amount of time on this move. He's used about 5 minutes now. His clock is past what Dave's is. He's finally hit that point in the game. And honestly, if he was going to use his clock for a move to take a long time to think, this would be it. The answer is not obvious here. There's nothing particular that really stands out. Maybe the chat has suggested, Vly would work as a fish for scurvies, perhaps. This is just, I mean, this is tough. This is a really, really tough move.
Yeah, and this is the classic Jesse time management of being very willing to sink a lot of time into one single position. He's done great to get to this part of the game with this much time to sink, but of course, part of that was having a bunch of decisions that were either pretty obvious, and then just that miss of Jurds in the mid game really set him back quite a bit. But even after that, Dave was in great position with that second blank. So let's see how fast Van Load comes down. It's been a couple seconds now. Let's see. I'm counting.
Oh, he's about to do it.
What's the delay? Yeah, I feel like the delay is just Dave being too cool of a cucumber to be rushed in any situation. So you could see he was clearly waiting for the chance to play this, Nits.
He may have spotted, well, I'm not sure if he has, but he may be looking for plays through the Y. Not sure why he would feel the need to do that when Van Load, as it comes down, is such a great play. But yeah, doing his due diligence as always, I think.
Yeah, I think that's it. Maybe knowing Dave, he probably also briefly, after Vly, he must have seen, or maybe he quickly saw, that he had an even higher scoring play of Dion here for 40. But of course, in this situation, he's blocking that V every time. There's just too much that was still unseen to him that Jesse might have had. So makes total sense that he would stick with the original plan. But yeah, knowing Dave, he probably saw, oh, I have a 40-point play here, but I guess I have to stick to Van Load the whole time.
Absolutely. There's nothing that really stands out for Jesse here yet again. I mean, he could choose to fish off his duplicates, maybe put his C and his S in a spot that scores some points like COS through the O and Vomit, perhaps. But I mean, this is getting tough. This is getting tough. I can't imagine him throwing in the towel though and playing, I don't know, like Seric, like SERIC or something, for I think 25 points. I can't imagine him doing that. I think he's going to keep fighting on. I think he's going to fish.
Yeah, he'll fish even knowing that, and he sees that he almost has this ECCRISS, very close to an actual word, crises. That is a valid word, but doesn't actually fit on the board for him, unfortunately. Crisis and crises, both valid. So an open I or E would be giving him a bingo. At this time, he doesn't have either of those available, unfortunately. So yeah, this is. I think the reason that Jesse will fish is not because he expects it to win him the game, but because he has really good bingo tiles, and if he gets another bingo down, he's going to cut his deficit in this game by quite a bit. He's going to lose by less. Again, we've mentioned it a number of times. What are these numbers next to the players' records? That's their cumulative margin of victory. So Jesse is going to try his best to lose this game by as few points as possible. And if he does, he's going to remain ahead of Dave in the standings even after this loss. So that's going to be his thought process here. And he plays cuz here, which makes a lot of sense, leaving great tiles Nits to bingo on his next turn.
Absolutely. Oof. Okay. Now, Bink's got these kind of strange looking tiles, but I mean, is there even a place on this board for him to score more than like 20? I guess it would make, yeah. I mean, I guess it would make sense for him to play something like Unai underneath Vanload, which is such a great vowel dump. I guess there's no reason for him to, I mean, there's obviously no reason for him to open any places on the board. Unai seems a decent as play as any. What do you think?
So Dave is probably going to be thinking about a play exactly like this, or what do I have that fouls up this area of the board? So those are going to be his two options. He's going to be looking at these unseen tiles and, thinking, what can I do to prevent Jesse from bingoing for exactly the same reason that Jesse's trying to bingo right now. It's not going to decide the game. Dave is up by too much, but Dave wants to win by as much as he can. So for me, I think that this area of the board is going to result in more bingos than this one. This is definitely still possible that Jesse will have bingos at the top of the board. But I think we might see something like Hinau here from Dave, which would make it much more difficult. It would cut off bingos ending in R, which is very possible with this IE combination, IER, very common way to end 8-letter words. And it definitely blocks the N and A as well. But maybe Dave can just really go hard for a block and play something like Pain, P-A-N-E, in this spot, which really cuts down. Of course, he leaves himself liable to a pretty bad follow-up draw. But if he really wants to decrease Jesse's chance of bingoing, you could see a play like that come down here.
Absolutely. He looks like he's considering Punani. That's what he's got on his rack right now, or getting close to it. But luckily for Jesse, he's still going to be able to fit Styric on top of the board. So he's going to be able to play OS, AT, VE. This is one of those racks, these kind of draws that we call really high probable or baby bingo draws. These are tiles that appear so frequently in the bag that you are likely to draw them. So when people do play competitive Scrabble, they tend to learn the probable bingos 7s and 8s first. So Jesse is in no way going to miss this.
All right, there we go. So that is the route that Dave goes here. This does look like it's even blockier than playing something parallel to Sonar, because, players at this level, you could easily see playing 9-letter words through these 2-tile combinations right here. So this play by Dave is definitely even blockier. Makes a lot of sense. But yeah, Nits, you're totally right. Styric will still go down. Actually, oddly, erratics, which would have already gone down through the R of sonar, still plays down there with all these overlaps. So looks like Jesse was holding that play before finally accepting, not giving Dave the extra 5 points. But yeah, with one tile in the bag and Dave up by 130 points, Jesse, even Steerick, which scores 81, is just not going to get him anywhere close to enough. And yeah, so the final tile in the bag looks like an I. So we're going to see Jesse very likely play one of his 2 playable bingos here. I'd be stunned if he missed Steerick, Nits. I don't think he'll miss that.
I do not think he's going to miss it. I think there may be a possibility for him considering, well, okay, if I fish off one tile, do I draw a bingo in 2 spots and then bingo out, get all the tiles off of Bing's rack, and then, like cut the spread even more? Is there like any reason why he should be doing that? And I don't think he's likely to. I mean, Steerick is coming down as we see it, but sometimes we do see that kind of strategic consideration come into play with these games.
Yeah, if it was closer, you definitely could see that happen. That is a very reasonable strategic tack to take in games where you need to get that walk-off bingo, that game-ending bingo, if you're going to win the game. In this situation, Jesse, there is no way he's going to win the game. So playing his bingo now, on average, is going to help him to lose this game by less than if he were to defer a bingo now. So in any case, Dave into the end game, playing against Jesse's eye. Dave clearly spotting. He's so good at end game. It's almost unfair that Dave is so good at knowing all these different words of almost any length. And he's really, really good at the end game part. He spots his best play of Boyo for 44 points here. Great job by him, Nits.
That too in under a minute. That was 58 seconds. And some of that was him counting the word. That was crazy. Who does that? Well, I mean, Dave Wiegand does, but yeah. And that's why these games are such a pleasure to watch. He's incredible. These are really fun games to watch.
So Jesse has not left to do but find a decent spot for his eye. The best of those is right here for 7 points. He could be forgiven for not absolutely locking in on this position, but that is very unlike Jesse. I'm sure he's going to find that spot to get the most out of that last tile. And that's going to do it. A pretty nice bounce back win for Dave Wiegand. We saw him against Nisikak at team come out on the wrong end of a very exciting matchup in round 15, but he's rebounded against a difficult opponent in his very next game. I think, yep, and there you go. There is that spot there. I think these players are likely to share some insights after their final bookkeeping Nits. I'm fascinated to hear what they might say.
Let's do it. Let's hear what they have to say.
Thanks. Tough one for you. I know, it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. I think it was probably one of my better play games of the tiles. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of in it. I probably needed things to work better on the. Yeah, I didn't feel that bad after I played Job. I mean, it's sort of there. Didn't quite make us soon enough. I mean, I can't really ask for much more. The triple stood open for turn, so. Good luck next week.
All right. Not a ton of endgame discussion there. Sometimes you never know. Sometimes the players have a lot to talk about. Other times, not so much. I guess there would be no reason for, I mean, it's tough, right? Like I expect we saw yesterday Josh Sokol ran over to Eric Goldstein after his game to let him know all of the mistakes that he made in the game. From a content standpoint, seeing Jesse's reaction to letting Jurds slip by him in the mid game would have been interesting. But other than that, just a tough one for him going up against a really strong player in Dave.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to get Jesse's reaction in his annotated games not far from now. And, he's known for annotating his games and posting them on cross tables. David Wiegand does as well. I was just about to call him David Bing. You know how it is now. And he's another one of those prolific annotators. It's really great as a learning tool to go through these games and see what these players are saying about their games, how they're analyzing, and it's a great way to get feedback on your games as well. I mean, I've only very recently started annotating and posting my games, and it's been, I think, a game changer to have my friends commentate and look at these games, tell me what they think. I think it's a huge, huge public resource. So thank you, Seth Lipkin, for creating that resource, for making it available, and for everyone who does annotate their games and publishes them, including you, Will.
Yeah, it's been a while since I did that, but yeah, just going to put in the chat the link. I mean, this website is so much more than just that. Hopefully that hyperlinks. I didn't really do the hyperlinking, but that is the URL, and it's kind of an one-stop shop. It's like a schedule, a calendar of events. It's a record keeping resource, and it's an amazing way to learn from other players and the games that they play and post. So really a pillar of our community in pretty much every way. Sorry that the link isn't whatever hyperlink there. But in any case, yeah, Jesse, definitely a player I've learned a ton from and love watching his games. So I fully expect that if he gets around to it, I know things are busier for him these days. But in any case, round 16 in the books, round 17, a bit of a David versus Goliath situation here. Winter, the number 21 seed in this stacked field of 27 players, is right at the top of the standings right now, depending on the result of Wellington Jiggere's previous game. Well, actually, there are other games that still matter where people could pass him. But at least right now in the standings, Winter is second overall behind Wellington Jiggere, and we're going to see him take on Nisikak Etim, the winner of a round 15 game, in a pretty surprising matchup, Nits.
Oh, wow. I'm really excited to see that. I'm not going to lie, when you did say David versus Goliath, I thought we were going to see another David on stream, but this works too. I think it's going to be a great time. I'd love to see how Winter has been doing. He's playing so well recently. It'd be great to see his skills on stream and just, have all of you guys with us.
Yeah, so we'll get set and prepared for that matchup. It'll be our third game of the morning, after which we will cut to our lunch break and then switch over to the North American focused lexicon for the afternoon. But for now, very quick break, and we will be back with round 17 between Etim and Winter at the 2024 World Cup.